escrow for a total of 5 years. I started as a receptionist, went into the processing role, and then I've been a closer for 2 years. And I have worked in new construction. I've worked with real estate investors, residential contracts, dabbled in a little bit of commercial. So if you have a question about title, there's a pretty good chance that I can answer it, or I can find somebody who can get you that answer. I'm new to the Platinum Title team. I joined in October of last year. Our office opened in November. So that's a little bit about me. I also have a 3.5-year-old son named Tyson. I'm a cat mom. Her name's Maxie. And I like to roller skate, do photography, and I love to read. So a little bit about me. So when new agents come, they come into the office and they're like, okay, this is Platinum Title. And then their eyes are kind of glazed over and they're like, what does title do? And to be quite honest, when I got started in title, I thought it was like a title loan place. Like I thought that I was going to work somewhere where somebody was going to come get some money against their car. So as a title officer, I'm like your go-to person once your contract has been accepted and you are now under contract. So the biggest thing I think that a lot of people forget to do right off the bat is to just share your contract with your closer. You can do that via dot loop. A lot of people will just share their loop with me. I can hop in and grab the attachments that I need. And I was talking to Elizabeth, and we have decided that we're going to do this probably in different segments. So like, I'm not going to go into everything today because you guys will be very confused as to what the heck I'm talking about. So there's certain things that as a title person, we're going to need from your contract right off the jump. I will say the biggest thing that your escrow closer would love you for is making sure that your customer's email address and phone number are included with your email. I know that it's not typically part of the contract. Your guys' emails are attached to that, which is great. It's just going to save you time in the long run if you provide that information right from the jump, because I don't have to follow up and say, hey, can I have your seller's phone number and email address, because we're going to need that information if they have a mortgage against the property. If there's a homeowners association against the property, we may want to touch base with them to make sure that the information matches and things like that. It's also really helpful when you're a buyer's agent to provide that information, because so me specifically, I always send the final settlement statement to the buyers with our instructions on where we're closing, what the address is, what certified funds they need to bring, and the whole nine. So you've got your contract under that, you're doing that, that's great, you've sent it to your closer. Now, you need to make sure that your earnest money is delivered to the listing agent's title company. That will be disclosed on page 4 of all of the different fees. So your sales price, certified funds, seller paid closing costs. Page 4 is going to include a title company. I will say that probably 90% of the title companies in our market have an online earnest money deposit option. Now, that is an ACH transfer. It is not an automatic transfer of funds like a wire. There is a buffer. So as long as your customer can prove that, hey, I went on to Continental Title's website, I deposited, via ACH transfer, and they can provide that number, then there'll be a receipt that goes out. I will tell you it's not automatic, so don't panic. As long as you have your customer's proof, you should be good to go. It does take a couple days to show up in the title company's escrow account, so we just have to wait for that to happen. So you've sent the contract to your closer, you brought the earnest money to the other title company, so now what? Normally, in normal circumstances, which we are currently not in, it takes 3 to 5 business days for a commitment to be processed. So what that means is that 3 to 5 days from when you sent the contract to your closer, you can expect a completed title commitment. After you get the commitment, you want to just review that with your closer. Each closer is going to be different on their approach on how they do things. Each title company is different on how that information gets to you. As long as you are listed as the agent, you will receive that commitment. And in the meantime, since this, I think the majority of folks on this training are new, Even if you're using a different title company, bring the commitment to me. I can help you walk through the different pieces. So why do you even need a title company? The process of title is, simply put, the examining and searching of public documents on a property that you have put under contract, whether you are the person who's selling the property or whether you're the person that's representing the buyers. Title companies have two parts. They have the title side and they have the escrow side. I am an escrow closer, which means that I handle the back and forth of money. I'm the one who works with your loan officer and their team. Basically, the production side will do the first half. They're going to go and look at the property and they're going to say, okay, Susie Q and Johnny Lou bought this property in 2012 and they took out a mortgage with Wells Fargo. So we're going to find a recorded deed of trust. Great. They also have a tax lien from 2013 that is attached to the property. So basically they create a list of problems and I have to solve those problems as an escrow closer. And that is what the title commitment really is. It's a disclosure of all of the problems to be solved on a property. So like I mentioned, I'm the escrow closer. Your closer may have a processor. They would be considered an escrow processor. So I handle the closing aspect. So basically from when the title commitment is completed, it is then my job to ride out the rest of the process. I coordinate appointments, I enter in different fees, invoices, etc., and then I'm the one that physically will be doing the closing. I know in different meetings we've talked about how Platinum has like 6 locations and you can close wherever. I would say the majority of other title companies do the same. So you would just have one point of contact and then they could witness at a different office to close. So why do you need us? Having a clear title commitment, one, is written into your contract. I actually know the page. I think it's page 15 or 16, and it's section 23. In your guys' residential real estate contracts, it states that the seller is required to provide an owner's policy to the buyer. What that is once we've cleared all of the problems, we, or the listing agent's title company, issues an owner's policy to your buyer, which shows that these were the problems that were meant to be solved at the closing that we discovered at the time, and then a policy is issued that states as of March 12th, 2021, you have clear title to this property. If you did not have a title company or a title person in general involved in your transactions, that's leaving a lot of vulnerability between the seller and the buyer. You're hoping that the seller's honest and they could have a $50,000 tax lien that's against the property that you didn't know about. And so if they just did a quick claim deed, like there was like, you know what, forget it, we're just going to give you the property, I'll give you the money, then your buyer would be responsible for that seller's issues because they come with the property. So as a title company, we're the protection for both sides and we're an extra set of eyes. So I was going to print off a commitment and it didn't. So what I will do is I will put a sample commitment either at the end of this week or the beginning of next week in the Facebook group. So you guys can kind of look at those and have those to review. Like I mentioned, we're going to go way deeper into each thing of title during these trainings. But right now, these are what your commitments are going to look like, regardless if you close at Continental Title, Platinum, First United, Security First, wherever. They all have the same basic bones. So what you're going to see at the top, it shows the Alta commitment for title insurance, and this is Schedule A. On my slide, I have Schedule A, Schedule B, and exceptions. So we'll start with A. This is going to tell you who owns the property, which is going to be this guy here. So this is Kimberly. She is vested in the property. Then we're going to show, for instance, because we're doing the seller side, I'm showing what we're selling the property for. So 161 is our sales price. It's also going to cover who's purchasing the property, which is known as the proposed insured. And then if I was representing the buyer, maybe prime lending would be listed here. as the person who's getting a loan policy. So basically, Schedule A is just going to tell you who's selling the property, how much they're selling it for, who's purchasing the property, who they're borrowing the money to purchase the property, and then how much they're borrowing. So if I had a loan policy, it would be listed right under this proposed policy amount here. So this is where agents get a little overwhelmed because you get a 14-page attachment generally, because what it includes is our underwriter's privacy policy and any terms and conditions that go along with our commitment. This page is typically 4 or 5 pages into your PDF. So when you get that PDF initially, just scroll right through until you see Schedule A, because that's really where you're going to be wanting to pay attention. So then the next page will be Schedule B. And then this is the part that agents go, you know what, never mind. I'm closing out this document. I don't understand anything that it says. I will tell you, typically, the first 5 to 6 requirements that are listed are not real requirements. They're things that are going to be done already. So, for instance, pay the agreed amount for the real estate or interest to be insured. Yes, we're all in agreement that the contract is under for $161,000. The buyer is going to buy it for that. Pay the premiums, fees, and charges for the policy to the title company. That is assumed that that's going to be worked into closing costs. So we're going to get down to like number 5. This is just for your information. It's just showing you, this is known as the chain of title. So when Kim bought this property in 2020, it shows that there was a warranty deed recorded there. And then when that guy bought that property in May of 2020, there's a warranty deed recorded there. So this is just FYI. Now we're getting into things that kind of matter, as I say. Properly execute a warranty deed from town and spouse to the buyer. So that is, again, something that I will handle at closing. That's worked into closing costs as well as part of the closing. Properly execute the deed of trust. So the buyer is going to have a deed of trust done. Those fees will be collected correctly. The words that you're looking for are payment of, release of, judgment against. Those are going to tell you those are our problems. So on Kim's file, I have one problem. The problem is that she took out a mortgage at the end of 2020 from Plains Capital, I believe, or Plains Commerce. So I'm going to have to get a payoff for that. That is a very typical, very easy to solve problem. So this commitment, crystal clear. I would respond if you had questions. Hey, does everything look good? Looks great. I'm going to work with Kim to get her payoff information. I'll work on getting that done in the next 2 weeks. Then it goes into taxes. So this is a Missouri property. Missouri's taxes are paid once a year. Kansas taxes are paid twice a year. So those dates are generally May and then December for Kansas. On this Missouri one, it's showing that the real estate taxes for the year 2020 and the base amount of $1,208.72 are paid in full, which is great. I know that I don't have any delinquent taxes to collect from Kim, and so I'll just go forward with prorating taxes for 2020. Okay, so now we're through our requirements. We've solved our problems. We're good to go. The exceptions part of the policy is something that a lot of agents don't know exists. And it's important to know because this is like if Kansas City Power and Light had a line running through your property, this is where it would be disclosed. It's under exceptions because we can't insure over that. So for instance, we can't insure over any future levies from the county, which means that if there were any additional taxes from this year forward, our policy would not insure over those. It's happening in the future, so we can't control that. So future installments levied by City of Grandview, that's mentioned there. We can't insure over the taxes for 2021 or future years because they haven't happened yet. So we're not providing insurance over those items. Another important thing to know is if you have a buyer who for some reason buys a property and has a lien against them that the lender didn't discover, the lien will then attach to that person's property and will not be covered in our policy. So if they have a tax lien, as soon as they step into title, the tax lien is then attached to the property. It is not the responsibility of the title company. So, and that's rare, especially if you're having a customer that's buying with a lender. A lot of those things are discovered by the lender. But if, let's say you have a cash buyer and you have no idea they're in financial issues and they were to purchase a property, our policy would not cover and we would not be responsible for resolving those problems because they were your buyer's problems and did not become a part of the property until that purchase. So I would say the most important thing for you to review after the title commitment, of course, is the ALTA. This is also known as a HUD-1. So if you're operating with, how do I want to put this? Seasoned real estate agents, they may refer to it as the HUD-1. It didn't become we didn't start calling it the ALTA until like 2014 or 2015. This is the settlement statement. So this is going to be the collection of all of the fees that you have negotiated in your contract, you've agreed to, invoices that you need included, earnest money, the whole nine. So what we'll do is we'll go line by line and I'll kind of explain to you how these things get on here. So this is a separate transaction from Kim, but this is the sales price of the property and we get that directly from your real estate contract, which is why it's important for you to send as much as you can to the title company. So let's say you went under contract for $300,000, but there was an amendment that took it down to $298. If I don't have the amendment that takes it to $298, I'm not gonna know. So as soon as you execute any paperwork, a counter offer, an addendum, an RUC, an amendment, make sure you're forwarding those to the title company. So our next line is the earnest money deposit. This will always look as a credit to the buyer, not a debit to the seller. This is the loan amount. So if your buyer is using a lender, that will appear as a credit. The reason those appears as credit, here and here, this was the money they promised they would put down. This is the money they're borrowing. This money is being sent by the lender to the title company, which is where escrow comes into play. So we have county taxes. So we're at the turn of the year where the seller needs to credit the buyer for the time that they've been in the property. And how that works is from the beginning of the year to the close date, the seller pays the buyer. The seller is no longer responsible for the property after the close date, so we can't hold them responsible for that portion of the taxes after closing. There are homeowners association dues here. So the seller paid them for the month of March. So I had to debit the buyer, and then I had to credit the seller because they paid those up front. So that's how we get that evened. The rest of these fees here are all lender fees. So what happens is during the transaction as a buyer's closer, I wait to hear from the lender's side, and then they send me a closing disclosure, which is the form that has the loan amount, their loan number, the years they borrowed, their interest rate, the disclosure of their escrow account, and then the disclosure of their first payment, and then the first year of payments at least. So normally they look like this because they include all sorts of stuff. Here's the thing. As a buyer's agent, you want to see the combined ALTA statement because on the buyer's side, you're not going to see your commission because the buyer's not paying your commission. And I know our escrow closers are angels, but we're not perfect. And we may have entered a number wrong. We may have the wrong information. So from you being able to see that combined statement, you'll be able to catch those errors before we get signed. So you want to make sure your commission was collected correctly, that your admin fee was collected and collected correctly, that your sales price is correct. If there was any seller paid closing costs, you want to make sure those are represented. If there was a home warranty fee, if the home warranty is being charged to the seller, you're not going to see that on the buyer ALTA statement. It's the same thing with commission. Invoices. So I get a lot of, RUCs that have a list full of things that say, oh, they need to have sewer work done and the front door needs to be replaced and we need to collect this. Being able to see both sides of the Alta statement are going to be, you're going to be able to see, okay, yeah, they collected for the roof, they collected for the sewer. Oh, hey, I don't see the front door being collected. And I can go, oh, I wasn't sent that invoice. Let me follow up with the other title company. It's a checks and balances. And then you can make sure that your buyers are credited for their EMD. It's really important because if they're not, with split closings, you understand that the listing side has to hold the earnest money and then they send it to the buyer's title company for funding. Reason being is the buyer's title company disperses escrow. So a lot of times it can be left off if we haven't been sent the money yet, if somebody has overlooked in the contract. So just an extra set of eyes on there, get a combined Alta statement. Most closers are happy to send it over. If they're giving you a hard time, just call and say, well, I want to make sure that my commission is collected at this, and I want to make sure that the seller has a home warranty on their side. And if they go, oh, no, then you can say, okay, I'll send you the appropriate documentation so that we can get that updated. It's just about, doing your due diligence, representing your customers. Like I mentioned, the buyer's title company disperses out of escrow. So where this kind of gets confusing for people is like, well, I put my money down with the listing side. That's correct. The listing side holds the earnest money. They then either mail us or wire us the funds. It sits in my escrow account. What gets dispersed at closing is the seller's liens are going to be paid off in full. The seller's equity, so the cash to close for the seller, that will be dispersed. Invoices and your commission. That's how that gets out. Like I mentioned, title companies and commitments usually take 3 to 5 days to prepare. And if you can send your commission letter as soon as you receive it, that will make your closer very happy. Reason being is if you are a buyer's agent and you have an admin fee, I know your guys' admin fees. I work with you guys enough to know this is what you collect. But if you're working with somebody new, they may not know that you collect $395. And if you don't send your commission letter until the day of closing, they might have already balanced with the lender. And now you're going to have to tell your buyer, hey, I need you to write me a check for $395. Or, hey, you're going to have to bring $395 more to closing because we didn't work this in. So the second you get your commission letter, just hit forward to your closer. They will be ecstatic to receive that. I can tell you that for sure. Okay. I don't even know what time it is. Oh, that was pretty good. Does anybody have any questions? Probably should try and figure out this computer.
The EMD statement.
Yes. Yes. It's also known as the EMR, so the earnest money receipt.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Chat. Okay, I'll wait and see if anything pops up. Yes, so earnest money receipt. I'm trying to think if there's anything else directly that I've dealt with where people have questions about. So when you get the earnest money, normally that is disclosed in the contract of how long you have to deliver it. Elizabeth and I were talking. So let's say you have 3 days, but your third day falls on a Sunday. You can always deliver that to the listing agent, and then they can deliver it to their title company. It just has to be in their hands to show that you had the intentions of bringing that earnest money. I'm trying to think what else other questions have come up from people. If you have a split closing, you might receive 2 commitments. That's the best part about our split market is you have double the due diligence. So there's 2 title companies working at the same file. So a lot of the times we'll send each other our commitments and say, oh no, we didn't find that, or oh no, we found this release or whatever. So don't be too overwhelmed if you get 2 commitments. That's kind of typical.
New construction, Fallon, is that something, how does that work and how is that different with title?
Yeah, so new construction, your contracts are completely different. Who holds the earnest money is different. The earnest money is generally held with the builder directly. It will be credited to your customers on the settlement statement, but it's never held by a title company. They require, I would say, 95% to close with their title company. The reason being is your customers are not allowed into the new build until the money has been dispersed from escrow and has been received at the builder. Taxes will be different in the fact that when we prorate, builders refuse to prorate off of the value of the home. They only prorate off the value of the land because that house wasn't there until they put it there. So they don't feel like they need to pay those taxes. So it'll always be, the proration will be lower, but your lender and the title company will make sure the escrow account is representing the estimated taxes. It's just the exact same situation. Like this year, we're in an odd year. We have to estimate those taxes. We do the same kind of equation for new construction as well. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Contracts are way different though. So if you get a little overwhelmed, there's also like fee changes and all of that. So if you do have a new construction deal, just make sure that you're sending your closer every change, because what's going to happen is, let's say they add they want to do molding different and they want to add a sink and they want to do this. Well, that's going to increase the sales price. So at the end of the transaction, you just want to make sure that you have every single piece to the closer so that we get to the closing table and everything matches.
So what I hear you say, as an agent with the title company, and you did a great job on your slide, my responsibility is to get you a copy of the contract. After I get it under contract, whether I'm the listing agent or the buyer's agent, is to get my title company a copy of the contract. And the lender's information, is that helpful?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, so a copy of the contract and Earnest to make sure I stay on top of Earnest getting delivered on time, whether I'm the buyer's agent or the listing agent, and getting that receipt. And then I can kind of chill until you send us and I guess contact information for my client, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So that's initially kind of those three things are important: contract, Earnest Money, and contact information for my clients to you.
Yes.
Then I can kind of sit tight until I get that title commitment. If I've got any questions, you're happy to review that with me.
Absolutely.
If there's any errors, you're going to bring, Platinum is great about bringing that to our attention.
Yes.
And I've always appreciated that in working with you guys, that you say, hey, we're on this, but note that this is going to be something that we need to get addressed, but
Correct.
I want you to bring it to your attention. And then I sit tight till closer to closing, except for I'm sending you any changes to the contract. So if we negotiate a change during resolution, or if there's an amendment because a closing date changed or something else changed, I'm communicating that to you.
Yes.
And then
you need to schedule your customers.
no, that was, I was going to go there next. So then do you schedule them for closing, or do we schedule them?
I do whatever you want me to do. I have customers who expect me to just schedule their people. Beautiful. I have people who like to be the middleman. I will step back. So you just communicate your preference to your closer and they will do what they need to do. I will tell you, sellers need to close probably a day or two before the buyers. This is just for convenience sake. It's just so that the seller's documents can be executed and then the buyer can be executed and will go smoothly. With buyers, please try to schedule them between 9 a.m. and noon. The reason is when we get into the afternoon closings, there's wire cutoff times for the Fed, which means that we can't send money after a certain time. If you schedule a 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock buyer, you're getting into the unknown zone if that's going to fund. I love a 9 a.m. buyer. Everyone's caffeinated, everyone's happy, and then everything's funded by latest noon. Absolutely. So just to keep yourself in the safe, your customers can take possession. Yeah, funding, just try and schedule those earlier, the better.
So good to know too. So sellers, for their convenience too, we can schedule them early, a couple days prior to closing. So
they're going to be out of town. Cool.
Or just not dealing with the day of moving.
Yeah, and even if they're like, I just want to get this out of the way, we can have them sign the meat of the documents that need to be notarized literally the day you send me the contract. I have access to being able to put the legal description. I can get everything said and done that day, and we can have the closing disclosure and the Alta statement e-signed. So there's really no problem that we can't solve as a title company. Personally, if your buyers are out of town, no big deal. There's mobile notary services. There are a couple tweaks and things like we'll get into in a deeper class, but we can make that happen too.
So what if it's a contingent? So like you said, to do the sellers before, what if the sellers are contingent on that new buyer pending through?
Then if it's contingent, your people need to be the first appointment. Then your buyers need to be the 9 a.m.
So in that
8:30.
case, the buyers would close before the sellers.
No, yeah.
So the sellers would close, the seller truthfully, if it's contingent, they're probably going to close the sale of their property and the purchase of their property at one appointment. Yeah. And so what normally would happen is I personally am saying, hey, your sellers are closing and purchasing at 9, that buyer's purchasing at 9 so that they can get those papers, that buyer can get to the title company, and then we can keep rolling.
Yeah, so Emily, does that make sense? So your client's old house, and so they will, basically what will happen, your client has the old house and the new house. The sellers of the new house are gonna sign those documents a few days prior.
Yeah.
Your client is gonna be the one that comes in and signs on the paperwork of their old house and the paperwork for their new house at the same time, and then the money just flows that way. Anytime you have them stacked up like that, where your client is using the money from the sale of their home to purchase the home, make sure that you are really being strategic and talking to your title closer to say, hey, help me walk through to make sure I'm understanding money's going to flow properly and how we are scheduling this and how we have this set up.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. But that is fine for it to flow. And often the title company just takes the money then and applies it to the new one.
Exactly.
And they also can do where if your sellers are selling their old house, and let's say that they've got a lot of equity in it, so there's $100,000 in that old house, if they only want to use 50,000 of it for the new house, they can do that. And at closing, they're going to close, the title company is going to take 50,000 of that 100 and apply it to the new house, and then they're going to wire the other 50,000 to your client. So they can do that kind of stuff as well.
So it's all one.
Yeah. And then on contingent properties, let's say the seller's closing at Continental Title, but you want to use Platinum. All we're going to do is send that seller's money to Continental Title, and they will do their thing. There's not multiple wires that have to go to the seller. They have to bring their money. We just communicate straight across. We wire from one title company to another.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then we're just sitting back since we've given you our clients' information, we're waiting for that title commitment and we're scheduling, and yet you're working with my sellers to get their bank information for the payoff. You're working with them to get any of the other information that you need. You work directly with my clients for that.
Correct. And normally, so we have templates that we send out to our customers that read a certain way that says, hi, I'm Fallon with Platinum Title, and this is the information that I need from you. Typically, I CC my agents on those emails. One, they can see that it's happening. And two, if the customer's like, I don't know no Fallon, and I'm not giving her my last four of my social, you can pop in and say, hey, by the way, this is a legitimate email. Feel free to respond. And typically, I try to send those the day you send me the contract so that I just am ahead of the game on sellers so that I can get your people done, closed, and they don't have to think about it. Same deal with the buyer, providing that contact information. The lender will issue that closing disclosure and send out a real pretty email. Some of them send out a video chat. I will follow up with a very simple email with the ALTA statement, that breakdown of all those fees, and say, hey, your appointment's scheduled for 2 o'clock on Thursday at this location. You need to bring certified funds. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Don't ever let your customers show up with a personal check. We love them. We trust them. We do not know them.
So certified funds, a cashier's check.
Yes, cashier's check or a wire, which is totally welcome. The biggest thing about a wire is you want to make sure that it's either started the night before or the morning of closing. So I'd hate for closing to be at 9 a.m. The money not show up till 2. It's the same thing. We're getting into the zone of, is this going to fund?
And with that wiring, wire fraud is a big deal.
Huge.
So if your clients do elect to wire, whether they're out of town or for a matter of convenience, make sure that they're getting that information. You need to make it very clear to your clients. Wire fraud is a big deal. There's a lot of it going on in the world. People are going and creating emails that look like email addresses and mimicking the signature lines and are hacking into things and are figuring out ways to get people to wire money to fit false accounts. So anytime anyone ever wanted to wire money, I said, okay, great. Let me get the information, let me make sure, let's call and get that information directly from Fallon, because you never want to be the person that gets the phone call if I wired my $45,000. Why doesn't Platinum have it? So wire is something to just take the extra time to make that very clear to your clients that's important.
And we're required to send those secured. And every title company is. So I always tell people, I'm gonna send you a secure email, and then here's my phone number. Give me a call and I'll confirm those numbers with you, just to make sure you have everything correct. I don't bring up the fact that somebody could have intercepted that. I just say, hey, I just wanna make sure that what you're seeing is what we've got. And then even if you're like, you know what, forget it, I'm gonna call Fallon, I'm gonna get her wire instructions, and then I'm gonna deliver them to my customer. Either way, I can print you off my wire instructions. I would let you know if we change them, but I have copies of all of that in my office too. And other title companies have the same ability to do the same thing, so.
Great. No. Any other questions when it comes to title work?
It can be a little overwhelming. So if you get your first commitment and you're like, I have no idea what this is, I promise, like I said, I don't care where you close. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to explain those things to you. I've seen a lot. There's a lot of things that we can undo. So.
And I would say so the title commitment's big. Platinum's great about watching out for you on that, and they're reviewing it. It's important for you to review it as well. And then that settlement statement or that HUD right before closing, they're going to get it to you in plenty of time so that you can review it before it goes to your client. Because oftentimes clients will call and say, hey, what is this? Why is it saying that I'm paying for the title or the title work? I thought the seller paid for that. Well, the seller does pay for it, guys. It's just, there's an adjustment, but you being able to then say, oh, look at line 601. This is where the adjustment is, makes you look like a professional and are able to understand that. Also, it makes, there's no surprises day of closing that things aren't quite what they should be, or like she mentioned before, that there isn't a home warranty missing or something of that sort. So those are that's kind of the last step of, okay, and then attending closings. What is the current status? Because I know a lot of agents is like a customer servicing, like to attend that closing appointment, maybe bring a gift if they want to do like a thank you gift to their clients. What does that look and feel like, or what are the rules you guys carry around that?
Margaret has said, since it's lifting a little bit, you're welcome to attend. I'm happy to have you in my closing room. I can't advocate for all of Platinum's offices, so if you are closing at an Overland Park office or something, I'm happy to pop in and say, hey, can my people attend? I do just leave my actual closing door open and then shut my doors to my office so that we can have a little bit more comfortable experience. I will say also, totally forgot, policy-wise, the only time a buyer will not pay for a policy is if they're buying cash. There is a policy they have to buy for the lender. There is a lender policy. It's generally a flat fee.
Okay, so slow down just a little bit, Fallon. And so the policy that you see in the contract, the sellers are required to provide clear title to the buyers. And so that is called the owner's policy, which Fallon talked about before. Then the buyer, if they're taking out a loan, is required to provide clear title to their lenders. That's the lender's policy. So there are actually two different policies. If you have two different title companies involved, the buyer's title company provides that lender's policy. The seller's title company provides the owner's policy. Does that make sense? Because of the who's providing it, okay? What Fallon, I think, a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up because it's kind of embarrassing sometimes if you don't know.
Right.
If you ever have a client paying cash, it would be best for your buyer to then just close with the seller's title company because there's no lender's policy and their fees are quite low. When you're paying cash, what is your closing fees normally if you're paying cash as a buyer?
Platinum, it's $125 closing fee, $4 to e-record the warranty deed, and the deed's either $24 in Missouri or $38 in Kansas. Those are your only fees that you have to pay.
And most of the time, most title companies, if they got an order and it's a cash deal and there's another title company involved, Platinum's really great about it and very gracious to say, actually, it's really probably best that you close your buyer with the other title company because it doesn't make sense for us to do this. There's not, it's not in the best interest of your client. Those closing appointments the cash closing appointments take all of about maybe 10 minutes. Expectations around timing of closing appointments. So if it is something that there is a loan involved for a buyer, I would probably set the expectation with your clients to allow maybe 45 minutes to an hour. My joke often was, well, it depends on how much we're going to chat, but you can usually get in and out of there in maybe 30, 40 minutes if you've got a loan. But I would allow an hour for that appointment and set that expectation.
And then speaking of cash, so let's say you have a cash buyer in California. We could e-sign that entire closing package. The money can be wired. They can overnight me a cashier's check. The only thing we can't e-sign for sellers is a warranty deed, which is why those are in-person appointments. Your customers will probably ask you, why can't this be done in dot loop? Well, they need your wet signature on the deed. And it'll make you, one, sound really smart, and two, solve your problem, because they won't argue with that. But cash buyers are so easy. I do them literally in 2 seconds, especially if you're in person. It's not even 5 minutes. I think it might be longer for me to explain the settlement statement to them, which they would have already seen. So a lot of the times, that's the other bonus. If your customer's already seen it before they, would you get the UPS?
Yes,
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, and then for a seller appointment, how long do those normally take?
15 to 20 minutes. It just depends on if they have questions, if they, like if they're chatty, if there's, issue, if there was maybe an issue that they had a question about. I'd say 15 to 20 minutes. And things that you're gonna wanna prepare your customer to bring, like I mentioned, I send out an email that says, hey, this is what your closing time is, this is where your appointment is, this is where you should park, and this is what you should bring to closing. You're always gonna want your sellers to bring the way they wanna get their money. So if they have a blank check or a letter, like Community America always types up a letter with the routing number, the account number, and the name on the account, their ID, and then that's it, really, for sellers. And then buyers are just their certified funds, whatever form, cashier's check or wire, and then their ID.
Okay, we have a question from Elena.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned mobile notary. Is it relatively easy to schedule for the client?
Yeah, so I actually do, I think my tin's here. I'll be right with you,
I'll go
folks.
grade them. I'll go.
Thank you. I actually use a third-party notary service. So what I do is I am like your liaison between the customer and the notary service. So I will obtain some information regarding their phone number, where they would like to close, what that address is, if it's a Starbucks, if it's their home address. And then the service I use is called BankServe. I'll be super transparent. Sellers, if they would like to close somewhere else, is $125. Buyers with a loan is $175. And that's tacked onto their closing cost. And normally what we do to avoid any funding issues is, let's say I have a situation, I had it with Dylan. His closing is today, 3/11. His customers closed yesterday, 3/10 in Ohio. I just received the documents via UPS. So what I do is I will get those documents sent to the lender and I'll get it funded on the day of closing. So yeah, it's really, really easy. I like to use BankServe, and I know it's a little pricier, but I will explain why. They provide insurance, E&O, and I trust their people because there's I'm handing these documents to somebody I don't know in a different state, making sure that they get there on time. So yes, pretty easy. The client doesn't have to do anything, typically, on their end. How does that? I was going to say my 10 o'clock shut up a little early. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions to throw in the chat? Yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
That's it. Thank you.
Great job, Fallon. So very helpful.
Thank you, thank you. And it's all been recorded, so it'll live on forever.
Oh, great. Yeah, love that for me.
Excellent. Thanks, guys, for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you.